infuriating example of mob mentality you've witnessed. Something you should know is that my town is very old-fashioned in our beliefs, but I never thought anyone would go so far as to ruin a woman's life over it. The morning everything changed. My daughter Anne was chattering about show and tell while I braided her hair. She mentioned seeing Ms. Gilbert and her girlfriend Sarah at the farmer's market picking pumpkins while she was staying with her dad. I just smiled and kept braiding. The next day, a fellow mom, Melissa, cornered me in the parking lot. Her acrylic nails dug into my arm as she hissed. My daughter told me that yours saw Gilbert in a certain situation. The way she said situation made my skin crawl. She said, "We need to protect our babies from that lifestyle being promoted." I yanked my arm free, but watched her immediately texting what looked like every other parent contact in her phone. Within 3 days, Ms. Gilbert's world began crumbling. Parents who used to beg for her teaching tips suddenly crossed the street to avoid her. The volunteer schedule got mysteriously rewritten overnight with half the names vanishing. She tried addressing it professionally with a letter inviting concerned parents to discuss things directly. Only 3 showed up. I sat outside Robert's office during one meeting, listening to Melissa screech, "It's not about discrimination, it's about transparency. What else isn't she telling us?" Ms. Gilbert had to request union representation just to exist, but she never let it affect her teaching. She created specialized plans for struggling readers. She stayed until 7 p.m. tutoring immigrant parents in English. When the Davidson's house burned down, she organized a fundraiser raising $3,000, yet parents still pulled their kids from her class. The principal caved to pressure, requiring a parent monitor in her classroom at all times. Then October arrived, bringing hell. Anne got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was drowning in insulin calculations and carb counting when Ms. Gilbert stepped up to help me. She kept glucose tablets in her desk, learned Anne's warning signs, and created a color-coded chart for substitutes. 2 weeks later, that knowledge saved my daughter's life. Anne had collapsed during recess while the nurse was at the other elementary school. The other teachers just stood there screaming. Ms. Gilbert heard the commotion from inside. She sprinted out, took one look, and knew what was happening. She administered the glucose and saved my daughter's life. She rode in the ambulance holding Anne's hand. The doctor was blunt and said my daughter's teacher prevented brain damage or death. I thought that would end everything. She was a hero, but I was wrong. That night's emergency PTA meeting turned into a mob trial. Melissa stood up with fake tears saying she injected a child without waiting for parental consent. She touched her, held her, and put her hands all over her. Her voice cracked dramatically. I shot up shaking. She saved my daughter's life. The principal tried explaining Ms. Gilbert followed exact emergency protocol, but Melissa shrieked asking whose side he was on. Someone yelled about the gay agenda. Another suggested Ms. Gilbert staged emergencies to touch children. The insanity was suffocating. The principal folded completely. Pending investigation into inappropriate physical contact, Ms. Gilbert would be placed on administrative leave with pay, he added weakly. 2 veteran teachers walked out in disgust. Within 24 hours, someone posted Ms. Gilbert's address on Facebook. By morning, her tires were slashed. Horrible slurs were painted on her apartment door. Death threats flooded Ms. Gilbert's inbox. Police called it free speech. Anne woke up screaming nightly, not about needles or blood sugar. She said, "Did I do something bad? Is that why Ms. Gilbert left?" 3 days before the hearing, I went to her house. Tears streamed silently down her face. I apologized for any trouble she went through saving my daughter. She shook her head slowly. She pulled out a photo book with photos of former classes. She said, "I became a teacher because my little brother died. His teacher didn't recognize diabetic shock. He was 6. I swore no child would suffer from adult ignorance on my watch." Her voice finally shattered completely. "They'll destroy anyone who loves differently, even if that person saves their babies. I can't fight this anymore." I told her she shouldn't give up on herself because I sure as hell wasn't going to give up on her. Full story on channel link below.